it's that time again. Another edition of Unlock with Fox's Brock Huard. I'm Lance Taylor from the next round on Disrupt the Media. Give us a like, thumbs up. It is brought to you by MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag, put in that promo code next round, and you will get a first deposit bonus on the house at mybookie.ag. You seem in pretty good spirits for your alma mater, your gold and purple Washington Huskies going down on Monday night to Michigan. You and Titus were there. First reaction to the game, and then tell me about the experience overall.
Yeah, tremendous scene. I mean, it was awesome. What a memory. It was a father-son trip of a lifetime. Titus, we got home yesterday, got off the plane, and walking to the car, he just said, "You know what, Dad, thanks." And I was like, "Yeah,
Awesome.
buddy, that was pretty freaking cool." Like, that was the whole experience, seeing so many of my former teammates. I joked with a few of them, like the only time maybe in our lifetime ever we'll get together like this is for a funeral of somebody, where you get to see everybody. And certainly the game was a little bit of a funeral. The fourth quarter was a funeral. Third quarter, it was very much in doubt. I was thinking, here comes Lazarus again, right? They're going to come out of this grave. They're going to survive. They're going to make the play to get it done. And they couldn't do it. And I got to be honest, like in that third quarter and coming out and throwing a pick on the first play of it, I'm like, this is not good. Got it back. That stop, the touchdown before half, getting the ball back. We know how critical that can be in a game, especially against an elite defense like Michigan. I mean, that defense is, I saw them earlier against Nebraska, and I thought, wow, that's Nebraska. I said to a lot of people, maybe even you, like, who's the best quarterback they faced all year, right? They didn't see the Pac-12 quarterbacks. They didn't really, Milroe's a great runner. He's not a dynamic quarterback. And I thought that offense would go up and down the field. They couldn't run it. Michigan hit a ton. They finished. I think to my eye, they missed like one tackle in the first drive, right? In the flat that led to the field goal. Outside of that, every one-on-one in the open field, they just hammer time. So kudos to them. That third quarter, I knew this wasn't going to happen because you had chance after chance after chance. Lance, they had 13 possessions. Right? I thought if they could get to 10, that would be good. 11 be awesome. They had 13 possessions, did not capitalize. I know there were a couple holding calls, especially the one on Rome that was major, but that wasn't the deciding factor. It was Michigan's just physicality, their tackling, their defense that had no weakness and was just flat out tremendous.
Yeah, and you told us before, and you were nice enough to join us game day for a few minutes, and you said, look, red zone's going to be so important. Yep. Can't settle for field goals. Got to be able to execute. Got to be able to get the touchdowns. And some of those possessions were a little empty. Play calling was a little strange. Thing I hated about it was now the narrative on Michael Penix. Well, he saw a good defense. This is what he's going to see in the NFL every week. Well, I got to remind you, people were critical on C.J. Stroud in spots, and he is absolutely tearing it up. Like, I think Michael Penix does have the opportunity to be really good. Like, I think he could be a franchise quarterback. He just it was just a bad night.
It was, and he took a beating, man, and he took a real beating, and his ribs, got beat up, something he dealt with a little bit earlier in the year. He didn't want to talk about, and I don't blame him. I'm sure his agent played a role in that. We're not going to discuss this at all because your biggest knock is going to be whether your frame endures, whether that body can hold up. And CJ had a little bit of the same. He had a shoulder, right, back-to-back years at Ohio State that he dealt with. Obviously, concussion this year in the NFL. That will be the question for Penix. It won't be the arm. It won't be the decision-making. It won't be the accuracy. You were put to the ultimate stress test in Michigan. You were one-dimensional. Your run game, because of Dylan's injury, that played a role. Because of Michigan's front seven, that played a role. You throw it 51 times. That's not sustainable against that group. But it will be the body. Between now and the draft, Lance, I have a feeling that we'll chat again a bunch. I know we'll get to do this through the Super Bowl, which is super exciting for me. But his body will be nitpicked. And the comp that I have, and they're the exact same height and weight, at least on paper going into the combine, is Teddy Bridgewater. And now his arm is different. His hands are 11. He doesn't have to wear gloves. He slings it, so much better than Teddy ever could or can or wants to. But the body, right? Like, can you take a beating? Can you endure the contact? Those are grown men you just played against. Not every game in the NFL is an onslaught like that, but a bunch of them are. And 50 quarterbacks later this last year, we learned, it's really hard to stay healthy for anybody, even Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert, who are big, powerful, strong, 240-pound guys. So that will be nitpicked. But as far as the experience, once in a lifetime, As far as father-son, incredible. As far as seeing old teammates, man, I couldn't believe it on my show yesterday. So Monday, did my show from down there on quote unquote Radio Row. There were 3 of us. Did my show down there Monday, talked to you right afterwards. And then on my game Tuesday, and I never cry like on my radio show. And I didn't even cry about the outcome or the game, but I just started to like well up because seeing my teammates and my friends and those you just shed blood, sweat, and tears, and you have connections and bonds and roots, and you don't realize that until you all get together, until you're in a room. It's like, hey, I love you, man. It's good. It's been too long, right? Got to watch a game with Marcus Tuiasosopo, who I hosted on his recruiting trip, who we roomed together the year we were together. And, we've been in weddings together, but we hadn't seen each other much. Called a Rice game this year, but I haven't really seen him. And we're just texting today like, man, that was far too long. So special in all of those ways. But ultimately on that night, Michigan's defense just shined and then some.
Yeah, glad you guys had a great time. It's Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. It's brought to you by lanceslog.com, where I told you on Monday, I said, I wish you the best of luck. I wanted to pull for Washington, but I took the under. I played 3 plays. I did Michigan, I did the under, and I did Blake Corum's over rushing yards. I was a little scared after Donovan Edwards' first 2 carries. I was like, damn, he just stole yards from my guys, but it didn't matter because no. But I'll tell you, man, you guys made really good defensive adjustments in that third quarter to limit what
Michigan got tight, right? I mean, in the building, I don't know what it felt like watching it, Lance. Sometimes, and I don't love watching games in person. I'll be honest with you. I feel like I missed so much. It reminded me in some ways of the 2005 Super Bowl in Detroit. And I knew that the calls would be a big deal. And in that game, they were bigger. I mean, I'm not comparing the two. Bill Levy, the white hat for that game, said afterwards that was the biggest downer of his officiating life. I mean, they just missed a bunch. That defined a bunch of the game and played much more of a role in the outcome than these couple holding calls did. But I feel like I missed. I don't see replays. I don't get to catch so much of what all the other narrative is. But when you're in the building, there are some advantages, and you can read body language a little more. You get to look at, and from a football perspective, I get to kind of, study the sidelines and get to see things that the cameras don't always show. And Michigan got tight in that third quarter. They puckered up, man. Their offense puckered up. They were 1 for 10 or 11 on third down.
Third down conversions, both sides were horrific.
2 for 14 for the Huskies. I know 1 for 10 for Michigan. And when we chatted Monday, and you would have said to me, hey, Brock, I can assure you this stat. Will it change your feelings at all? I can assure you that Michigan on offense is going to be 1 for 10 on third down. I would have said, man, my 30-24 prediction, I feel good about. I think the Huskies are going to get this done. But ultimately, Huskies were 2 for 14, one-dimensional. Michigan, and we talked about this last week, and we'll continue to, I'm sure, through the playoffs. Michigan and Baltimore and their defenses will be studied more than anybody else. After a season ends, coaching staffs all across America, high school, college, pro level, will study their peers. What did they do? What didn't they do? What stood out? Well, what Baltimore and Michigan are doing defensively right now, their route recognition, their fronts, their movement, their blitz packages, their scheme, their hitting, their detail, their fundamentals. It's not new. It's not earth-shattering, but how they're getting it done, why they're getting it done, the personnel that plays into getting all of that done, they will be the study for sure of this offseason.
Fox's Brock Huard right here on Unlocked. The good news is you'll be on the couch for Wild Card Weekend. We start NFC-wise, Packers at Cowboys. Right now, according to mybookie.ag, Packers or Cowboys, 7.5-point favorites, a total of 50.5. If I told you Aaron Jones, most important player in this game that's not a quarterback, fair?
Fair. Micah Parsons probably right there as well. Just a total
CeeDee Lamb.
Total game record. CeeDee
How about
Lamb.
This for the Packers to have any shot at winning this game? I mean, he's gone over 100, 3 consecutive games on the ground. He's got to be in that neighborhood for them to have a fighting shot.
Yeah, running, receiving, screen game, right? I mean, those elements that Michigan did to have a little bit of balance, Washington could not do. It all fell on Michael Penix, 51 attempts. If it all falls on Jordan Love and there's 35, 40 attempts, you're in trouble. He's going to get hit. There's going to be a fumble. There's going to be a tip. There's going to be a sack. Dallas has not lost at home in 2 years. And that defense this year is more inflamed than ever before. And Parsons going to want to put on an absolute show. So, yeah, that screen game, that receiving, not even the rushing yards, but the touches and the efficiency in his touches, absolutely critical for them because they'll spray it to the perimeter. They got other young guys out there. But yeah, if you become one-dimensional against Dallas, and we saw that this season, right, you get blown out. You don't just lose, you get blown out in that building. So I would take Dallas. I think I'd give those 7.5 points. And that defense at home in the playoffs is just going to be nuts.
Again, using college football to NFL analogies, going back to the Rose Bowl, and, I was there, it felt like, and I like Michigan in the game, and ultimately they win the game they cover in mybookie.ag, but it felt like they were really super tight.
Yes.
They've been in that situation. Yes. They had by far the most pressure on them than any of the 4 teams in the playoff.
Yep.
And they made some mistakes, un-Michigan-like mistakes with a fumble punt, a muff punt, missed PAT, missed field goal, just things that Michigan typically in the regular season knocks out of the park. And you just wonder, as good as the Cowboys have been, as dominant as they've been at home, now that they're in the postseason, Cowboy fans are fed up, man. They have not seen a postseason run in almost 30 years. Is there something real about pressure for the Cowboys?
I think there is. If this game were in Green Bay, though, I think I would feel entirely different. I don't know what the spread would be if it was in Green Bay. Cowboys probably still
3.5.
Yeah, 3.5. So it just feels, home cooking feels different, man. And sometimes there can be pressure to play at home. But 2 years not losing, and just the vibe they have, the mechanics at the line of scrimmage, the comfort that Dak is able to play and communicate with, it is such a vast difference. I wish people could understand. I remember I was at the backup with the Colts, and we played up at Arrowhead, and we had won in the wild card round. We had to go up there, pretty big underdogs, loudest stadium I'd ever been. I could not talk to Tom Moore or people right next to him. You had to really scream. It was a sea of red. We ended up beating them. Peyton was unbelievable. Defense made enough plays. But I wish, the average fan could see the difference for a quarterback in a communication in the line of scrimmage between playing at home and playing on the road. And especially with the Dallas and the way that Dak likes to do it and control it and all the tempo and everything that just is in the rhythm that goes with that versus a silent count, and you lose all of that. So I feel pretty good of all the games. I do feel pretty good about what Dallas is going to be capable of doing. Green Bay, icing on the cake, right? Not supposed to happen this year. As bad as they were the first half of the year, Jordan is playing better, but the speed, the intensity, it all cranks up. That noise is going to be off the charts for him and his crew to have to deal with. And yeah, the more and more it just smells like Dallas is going to get right now. Can they make a run? That's a different question of where they end up the following week in the divisional round or at home or who's coming in. But it sure seems like this thing is set up being the number 2 seed to have an opportunity to make a run they've not in a long time.
Yeah, I would assume 25 of 32 or more general managers, if they could play, have one wide receiver in the NFL, it would be Justin Jefferson. But outside of that, how close is CeeDee Lamb to being 2, 3, 4, 5 right now in the league?
Gosh, he is good, man. Lance, as you say that, I think back to him when I had him at Oklahoma 6 times. You're just like, special teams, as a punt returner, that's where those things show up as well. You've seen him in the end around. You see him at quick screens, and it's not just catches. It's like the ball's in his hand, and you just kind of like an elite punt returner, right? You just kind of hold your breath, or kick return, like, okay, just give him a lane. Just give him any space, and he's just different and could go out and make it happen. One last thing that I wrote down is you were talking about that Rose Bowl and just getting tight and playing tight, and why I don't think Dak will do that. Do that amazing stat that Michigan had this year? 15 games, turned it over 5 times.
That's amazing.
And 3 of those were in the Bowling Green game right before I had them with Nebraska. And so you take away those 3 interceptions that game, and they were all in the first half, I do believe, if I'm thinking right with my tape. So outside of that, the other 14 games, the other 14, 28, 56 quarters of play, you turned it over twice.
That's amazing.
And I think some of the way JJ plays, though, that is amazing, and it's a blessing. But the curse of that, Lance, and I think this is why they felt tight and why it looked that way to you in the Rose Bowl and me to that way in Houston, is because don't turn it over. Don't make a mistake. Don't turn it over. I remember John Kitna saying in a coach's meeting to our QB coach, he just snapped. He's like, I can't play this way. If everything you put on your board here and it's like, don't turn it over, don't turn it over, don't turn it over, you're putting me in a box. You're eliminating my creativity. You're eliminating my playmaking. I have no fun playing this way. If it's just, 1 to 2 to check down to run, to don't throw it away. Just don't turn it over. Don't turn it over. Don't turn it over. And I think that's some of what Michigan and JJ had to fight, right? The balance between that. How do I live in that world? Yet how am I creative and explosive? Dallas doesn't play that way. Mike McCarthy doesn't call the game that way. Dak Prescott doesn't play with that mindset. And even, just when you've not done it all season long and, hey, man, we'll overcome it and we're going to be aggressive and we're going to be the aggressors and we're going to be aggressive on fourth down. None of that should change. And I don't think it will change this weekend.
It's Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. I'm Lance Taylor for the next round. It is on Disrupt the Media. Like, subscribe. It is brought to you by MyBookie. Use that code next round. Get that first deposit bonus on the house at mybookie.ag. Rams at Detroit. Some are saying this could be the biggest ticket in wild card history as far as price point. Right now, the worst ticket in the house is about $600. The average ticket price is about $900. There's still tickets available in Kansas City, by the way. I know it's going to be 0 degrees for Dolphins Chiefs.
It's going to feel like minus 20.
I mean, this
Yes.
storyline is incredible. I'll never forget, Brock. Being a lifelong Rams fan, I was at dinner back in March of 21 or 22, 21, 22, whatever it was. 21. And my phone starts blowing up. Matthew Stafford has been traded to the Rams. And I'll never forget at that point when I really started to absorb that a little bit. I had two thoughts. I had a thought that I think the Rams are going to win a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford, which ultimately did, Super Bowl 56. My second thought was I feel bad for Jared Goff. Yep. Like, he's a really good kid, but he has been sent to Detroit to end his career, and we will never hear from Jared Goff again. And he has reinvented this career. He's a much better quarterback than he was in L.A. under Sean McVay. He's been really consistent the last couple of years. And now this storyline of Stafford versus Goff is just an incredible storyline. Right. But much like Dallas we talked about, I hate the fact, as a Rams fan, I wanted the Rams playing at Detroit more than I wanted them at Dallas. So I love the fact that they beat San Francisco in Week 18. But I do get nervous because back to the officiating thing too, if Detroit doesn't get the bad call on the 2-point conversion, they're the number 1 overall seed. So you just wonder how pissed off Dan Campbell has his guys going into this game. But at the same time, they haven't won a postseason game since 1991, longest postseason losing streak in the history of the NFL at 9 games. A lot of pressure on the lines, but they're mad as hell.
Yeah. I think the world is Sean McVay. I know you do as a Rams fan, and the year during COVID in 2020, I got flipped over to the NFL. I think I had the Rams 3 times. You'll remember all these games. The game up in Buffalo where they got totally screwed. The game against the Jets where, my producer still to this day, I was working the game with him that year. And every once in a while he'd go, man, remember that anatomy of an upset we did for the Jets game? And you gave me like 3 check boxes and every one of them just kind of hit that day, just like you did for the national title with your winner chicken dinner. He's like, occasionally we'll pull that up and pull that graphic out for different collegiate matchups. But every time I sat with McVay, that would be the guy to play for. Like, you're a QB, like that guy sets you up for success. That guy takes accountability. That guy. And I said to him during that season, I said, Sean, I hope you're not bothered by this, but I'm going to compare some of your operation to if I told you this story before?
No.
If I did, I apologize. Okay.
No, please.
Every once in a while, if I repeat stories, just say, hit me like a Family Feud. Already told me that story. But I said, I'm gonna try to compare, not try to, we're gonna kind of compare and contrast what you do to these triple option military service academies, because I think there's a lot of similarity. Very different because you throw it and they run it. But when it comes to everybody contributes, and Cooper Kupp's coming around on power and he's blocking guys and everybody can handle the ball at any different time. And, the simplicity of what you do with your guys up front, there's just some things here. And he's like, you think I'm going to be upset about that? Like, that's the greatest compliment you could give me, that detail, that disciplined in the similarity. And he said, maybe, the biggest difference yet similarity is we try to make it as easy as we can on the hardest position on the team. And by that, he means the offensive line. So if we got different parts that got to come in, or we got different people, and obviously when they were elite with Andrew Whitworth and other veterans, right? I mean, they were dominant with Todd Gurley and everything else. But I want to make it as simple and as easy on that group who has the hardest job. So you know what he won't be doing this weekend? Dropping back 7 steps, trying to block those freaks on the edge, letting Aiden Hutchinson just get off and go crazy. Not going to do that. They're going to run it. They're going to screen it. They're going to jet sweep it. They're going to play action it. They're going to move it. They're going to, just, let those 5 work as 5 and not just these individual battles that individually they can't win, but collectively they've got a chance. And I think he does it better. He and Shanahan do it better than anybody else does. Not surprised. They're from the same tree. They're 2 branches from ultimately Mike Shanahan's tree, but make it as easy as possible on the hardest group. And in that building, in that matchup with their personnel, the hardest is the edges. The hardest is dealing with Hutchinson and that crew. And Sean will have a tremendous plan for it. And I think that ball will move between the 20s. Can they score touchdowns, Lance? Can they punch it in for touchdowns? Can Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and their tight end be a huge X factor? And maybe their screen game, can they score touchdowns in the red zone? They do. They can upset the Lions, and number 7 could be moving on in the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, the Lions right now a 3-point favorite. 51.5 is the total at mybookie.ag. I wanted to ask you this because one of the Achilles heels for the Rams has been they've missed more kicks than any team, including extra points, since 2001. Lucas Haversick was cut last week. They bring in Brett Maurer, a guy that they had back in the regular season. He misses an extra point. Going into a critical playoff game, how much does everything like play calling with McVay, how much does that factor in? How, the team's mentality, oh my God, he's going out there again. That's a real thing, right?
It is. As you say that, I am reminded a couple years ago, Luke, I'm sorry, a lot of story time today. Maybe it's because I was around all my old teammates. So a lot of your questions are sparking a lot of story time for me. But my brother had asked me to say, hey, would you mind reaching out? And I hate to have you do this. And he's never done it. But would you mind reaching out to Peyton and just ask him about the 2-minute drill, what his mindset was, Peyton Manning? And if he could just send a little audio file, I'm putting together some clips, kind of my research project in the off season. And Peyton did it, and he was just great and gracious, and it was amazing. And Peyton, by the way, doesn't leave you voicemails. He loves to text, but he leaves you audio files. Eli Manning was talking about this. He's like, yeah, for our Monday night shows, I'll get a 9-minute, 12-minute audio file from Peyton. Like, really? Can you shorten it? Can you condense it? Can you put an email? No, here's just 12 minutes of my audio file. This was not nearly that long, but in it, Peyton said, you know what I loved in 2-minute drills? I love being down 4. It eliminated the thought of a field goal. I just loved it. We all knew, get in the huddle, here we go. And we would do situational work, and we do 2-minute every week, and we do 2-minute for every year, and we do 2-minute during training camps. And we've done 2,000,000 2-minute 1,000 times together with Marvin and Edge and those guys. I loved it when it was a 4-point difference, and we knew don't have to get to the 30 or 35 or play any of these other games. It eliminated some of that decision-making. And I think that's got to be some of the approach, honestly. The approach is not get to 35. It's not get to the 30. It's not settle for field goals. What I just said about scoring in the red zone. You got 4 downs. Let's go. Now, obviously, if it's a 7-yard line or a gimme, but, you get to PAT range and beyond, maybe the mindset is screw it.
No, I remember the Baltimore game this year. The Rams are 7-1 their last 8. The one loss was at Baltimore in overtime. And as a fan, I would rather it be a 4-point game right now. I really would. Mm-hmm. You can't put a season on a kicker. If it's Matt Gay 2 years ago, I get it. But right now with Brett Maurer, I just don't trust what you're going to get. On the other side, this Sam Laporta injury is really interesting because Jared Goff's got a variety of weapons, but Sam Laporta, we talk about C.J. Stroud, Puka Nacua, these incredible seasons. These rookies are bad. But Sam Laporta's been as good as anyone.
Just a dude, right? Double-digit touchdowns. And you don't get to that point with it all being scripted. And I know that Amon-Ra St. Brown and just – I don't know about you, but, man, that running back Gibbs just looks different. He is
from Georgia Tech to Bama to where he is now. And you kind of had a feeling this guy with his electrifying, his ability, out of the backfield to catch the football, he was going to have a better NFL career than a college career.
And doesn't he just look different, like speed-wise?
Oh, yeah, he can fly.
Do you know how hard that is to do as a running back at the NFL level? Like, there's really fast guys, and the combine's coming up in a couple months. And all of them, at running back, more than any other position, they're all like 5'9" to 6 foot and 205 or to 220. And they all run like 4'5" to 4'6".
Yep.
And then when you get just that dude that's just different, and I know the Lions were totally panned for that draft pick, and what an overreach, and what a terrible, and he and Campbell and even Laporte, like, what are we doing here? And they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly the skill set they wanted to add, exactly the track on inside a dome that they play. But there's not many times. Percy Harvin was kind of that way to me. When I watched Percy play, I was like, how is he that much faster than everybody else, even at the NFL level? So if I'm a Rams fan, if I'm you, quite honestly, that's the dude that scares me. Scares me as much as anybody, because once again, it's easy to get him the ball. You don't need everybody to block. You don't need all this other execution. Hey, here's a toss. Here's a bubble. Here's a swing pass. Here's a crease. Their O-line is dominant and physical, and I think will create those opportunities. And every time the ball is in his hand, it's a defense you got to just kind of hold your breath. And without Laporta or a limited Laporta, that rookie may have to come to life even more.
It's Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. I'm Lance Taylor for the next round. It's on Disrupt the Media. Make sure you like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up. We would appreciate that. It is brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use that code next round. You're going to get a first deposit bonus on the house at mybookie.ag. The last game of the wild card weekend, Monday night, Eagles at Tampa. This matchup, I mean, if you went back to September and you told me the Eagles are going to be on the road in the postseason and they're going to be playing Tampa and Baker Mayfield, I would have said you're insane.
Yep.
But they've lost 5 of 6. Baker Mayfield has been really, really above solid. He's played like a top 10 quarterback at times this year. Eagles are a 3-point favorite, total of 43.5. They're just trending in the wrong direction. I don't know how you have any confidence with the Philadelphia Eagles right now.
And I'll tell you, how much play has the finger gotten? Because when I saw Hurts hit his finger on that helmet, I was like, ooh, that looked like Russell Wilson with his mallet finger. You ever
People don't understand that. Like, hitting the finger on the helmet, it for a dude on the couch that's never played, it's probably like, damn, that can't be that bad.
Right?
You've done it. I mean, guys' fingers break all the time. I mean, how bad is it?
Well, it depends which one it is. Like, that's a big deal. I told you I watched a game with Tui, and I said, you ever play here in Energy Stadium? He's like, did I play here? Look at my finger. And he showed me like the scar on the tip of his index finger. He's like, preseason game, holding for a freaking backup kicker. Guy was terrible. And I was like, oh, man. And the snap came, and sure enough, this guy kicked it and kicked my finger, and I looked down and blood squirting out of the tip of my finger. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? And, goes in the locker room, and the coach's like, well, you're fine. He's like, I'm not fine. Like, this thing right here, like, this is, of all my fingers and digits, like, this knuckle, this finger is like the most important of all, right? And probably right behind that is a QB, this one. And that's why I think it was Russell's index finger. So that one, you get mallet finger. Remember, he had surgery and he was out. So I'm sure Jalen will put a splint of some sort, but that will absolutely affect him. I mean,
but on a throwing hand, every one of those fingers is important.
You can get away, I think, with the pinky. You've seen some of that. You put a splint, you can get away with that.
Yeah, but can you still have the distance without the pinky?
It's a control. I think you could still get some of the distance. I think it's just that level of control with each of these. The most important, second most important, third, fourth, of just, hey, man, I feel good about where this thing is going. And obviously your thumb, which Stafford dealt with earlier this year, that's number one. So 1, 2, just kind of all the way down the line. So, that's going to be a factor. But even beyond any of that knuckle or any of that injury, is this locker room is just a disaster.
What happened? I saw somebody today, and I thought this was insane. Nick Sirianni, if he's not your coach, a lot of people don't like him. He's pretty arrogant. At least he seems that way on the sideline. But I saw somebody say, is he coaching for his job Monday? They were in the Super Bowl last year. They're still 11 wins. I know it's completely fallen apart, but is there something going on inside of that locker room that is completely derailed this season?
Gosh, we had such a good – at some point I need to get you KJ Wright on your guys' show. You will love him. KJ,
former Mississippi State linebacker.
That's exactly right. All of Branch, Mississippi down there. He's doing more and more media. He's starting to do some games. He jumps on with us for an hour every Wednesday. It's one of my favorite segments and hours of the show every single week, every single month of the football season. And we were talking about the disappointment with the Seahawks this year and why they were mediocre and why they were 9-8 and why that, 3-7 down the stretch and went the wrong way and got swept by Sanford. And he said such a great word, right? Because all of this stuff has come out. And I don't know if you saw Cigar Gate because they beat Arizona. Their slappy kicker actually had a great year. He's only missed 4 kicks all year, but he missed 2 in the final 3 minutes.
Did you see the graphic too? Because I flipped over there and I was thinking about you, because I was like, if Green Bay could somehow blow this, and Green Bay locked it up before the game was over.
Correct.
But they were like, Matt Prater is 23 of 23 with game tying or winning field goals in the fourth quarter. And I was like, I told the girlfriend, I was like, watch this. He will miss. It was like a 52, 53 yarder and slices right.
Yep. After missing a 40-something yarder just a little bit earlier. And so he misses 2 kicks in the final 3.5 minutes. And it's all, oh, yeah, this is great. The Seahawks and Pete's super positive. And then you had dudes in the locker room smoking cigars.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
And some of the old heads like Bobby Wagner were pissed. And Pete, as Pete normally does, just downplays it. Hey, listen, Julian Love had a baby the week before, brought the cigars. We lose to the Steelers, not smoking them. It was more of a celebration of that. Tried to spin it that way.
Ooh.
But it's just off. It was off. It was off like DK Metcalf, who earlier in the year, Pete called him out and, his penalties and his ridiculous immaturity and his blow-ups, right? And, Pete said, we put those penalties on the board and we show it. And DK's answer was, it's just a board. It ain't nothing to me, man. That's just a board, right?
Wow.
So just, continue with Jamal Adams, just a loose cannon. And they have to, for a home game, he's inactive and he's not even in the stadium, right? He's at home. I mean, just all of these little incidents. And I thought KJ said it so well. You have to have balance. Pete is amazing leader of men. He is servant-hearted. He is sacrificial. He has grace. He takes every arrow. When Earl Thomas flips him off, going off the field, doesn't matter, right? When Richard Sherman just scorched earth, doesn't matter. Like all these things, just doesn't matter. Like he just takes it. But there has to be balance. And for many years when KJ was there, Ken Norton was the balance. He was a disciplinarian. He was a bad cop. He just totally hammered and hammer guys and not stand for any of that. They don't have it. And they're missing it, and it just doesn't feel right. Philadelphia, there's something totally out of whack, totally out of balance. That locker room is just it's dysfunctional. It doesn't have that kind of balance that it needs. And
it's crazy, though, Brock, that it can happen middle of the season or even past middle of the season. I mean, this team was 10-1.
Yep.
And they just look so different because, again, being a Rams guy, watching them in SoFi, and when they came in, I mean – it seemed like that disciplined team that made the Super Bowl run last year, it seemed like something was a little off. Like offensively, Jalen wasn't as good as he was during that run last year.
Yep.
But still to go 10-1 and then lose 5 of your last 6 games. And I mean, I don't know how you feel about this game. I kind of lean Tampa.
Kind of do too. And I don't know if it's the Zen 10 that was in Baker's pocket during practice. Not a lot of people liking that. Thinking for sure if he's got a 10 in practice, Tampa is absolutely good to go. I don't think Tampa's that good a team. They got just
Mike Evans doesn't get old though, does he?
No, he's unbelievable.
He is unbelievable.
But if that storyline doesn't tell you and show you how fine this line is in the NFL, this isn't college. This isn't the haves and have-nots. This is a fairly level playing field. This year it does. You and I think, both liked Baltimore and San Fran before the year, like a lot of people did. And over the course of the season, they're the number 1 seed. They're the favorites right now. To me, the favorites to meet in the Super Bowl and everything else. But the other 30, Philadelphia's sitting there at 10-1. We would have said that. I know we did. We did it on this podcast. Like, yeah, man, they're just built different.
Yep.
They're just complete. They're in every phase of it. And you just get a little off. You get a little imbalance. You get a little brokenness. You get a little doubt. You get a little injury. You get a little beat up. Whatever it is, man, the NFL is a darn fine line. And, oh, by the way, Brock Purdy's never won a Super Bowl. Or gotten his guys there. Got to do that. Baltimore and Lamar Jackson haven't gotten over that hump in the playoffs. They still got to prove it and got to go do that. And who knows who gets hot here in these playoffs. And, gosh, going to be some must-see TV.
Before I let you roll, give me 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks in the NFC confidence level for the postseason, 1, 2, and 3.
Oof.
And then of the 7 teams, because obviously San Francisco is your favorite to get to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC. We know they're in. But of these 6 teams playing this weekend, how many teams realistically can make a Super Bowl run?
Okay, so is this in the play of just the quarterback? Like, he plays great, but team has just got too many holes and they just can't quite. So just my confidence of that guy playing great, regardless of the
outcome. And based on some of it is experience. I mean, this is a different stage once you get to the postseason.
Okay, so the NFC, we have got, we'll go backwards, right? We got Jordan Love, we've got Stafford. Who's the 4 seed in the end? Oh, we just talked about it. Jalen and Baker and Jared,
Brock Purdy.
Dak and Purdy. Okay, so my confidence level, it's crazy. I mean, I'd go Matthew Stafford 1. He's gonna play great. He's gonna get the ball out. He's gonna distribute. As you said, 7-1, and that one loss went toe to toe. None of his business. Should be 8-0 since coming back from that injury. So I'd probably put confidence level Stafford number 1. Wow, that's a good question because I want to say
I got dogged out. I got called a homer because I went Stafford 1 and Dak 2.
I think I go Dak 2 as well.
I mean, Dak hasn't won that big game yet. You know, I mean, there's a big difference there.
But Dak feels different to me this year.
He does.
Dak feels mature to me this year. Dak feels scar tissue, not like thin skin. Just been there, done it. You know, if I make a mistake, it's not going to unravel me. Got a head coach now. He and him are really tied together. I think that's super important. Kind of like Stafford and Sean, his play caller, are just hip to hip, right? Totally confident. I think Dak and McCarthy have to overcome a lot there in Dallas. So much attention, so much hype, all of it. And I think the two of them are just like, hey, man, we're good. You know, we're just kind of hip to hip and let's do this. I don't feel that with Jalen. Baker, and Love is young.
That's what I was wondering. Really, what I knew you would go in some order, some semblance of an order of Dak and Stafford.
I go Purdy 3. I'll put Purdy 3.
I put Purdy 3 too.
I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed by the moment. He's got such a good repertoire. They're going to be playing at home. He doesn't have to play Baltimore. I don't see another group having, the kind of group that Baltimore does going in there, save for maybe Dallas if they end up getting there ultimately. And even then, they absolutely whooped them and handled them. So I probably put Brock number 3.
Okay, and finally, how many of the 7 teams can actually make a run?
Kansas City can still make a run. Green Bay is probably not going to make a run. LA is not going to make a run. I don't think Tampa Bay. I mean, Philadelphia, I'm going to still put there. Crazier things happen. This is a crazy league. These storylines go any which way. Does it hit finally such a rock bottom, such, humility? I know my buddy Herm Edwards said, no chance, it's done. It's totally toast. They've given up. They've quit. But there's too much talent. I mean, there's too much experience. They just did it a season ago, and we're right there and maybe a play or two away from winning the whole thing with a lot of the same personnel. So Philadelphia could do it. Dallas could do it. Detroit feels like a little bit of a reach because their defense has so many holes, and defense does matter, and depth of defense does matter. So I'll say 3. I'll say Dallas, San Francisco, and Philadelphia.
Always great stuff. It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard. Is brought to you by Lance'sLock.com. Free play every single day. Jump on board at Lance'sLock.com. Great stuff. Enjoy the wild card weekend, and we'll do this again next week.
Yeah, a lot of story time in this one, man, but that's what happens when you see old friends and old buddies and you reconnect and you just kind of reminisce a whole bunch of that, and going to be a lot of reaction. This is going to be, I don't know, man, this feels like as wild a playoff ride. We knew that the whole playoff, came down to 2 plays in the semis. Had it been a 12-team playoff this year, I don't know if Washington and Michigan would be the final 2 standing. Michigan probably would have been, as well as they were built in every single capacity of it.
Of course, Georgia would have been there.
They would, yeah. Alabama would, Georgia. I mean, all depend on matchups. Oregon, who knows? But this playoff feels as wild as it's felt in a long time, and certainly with some newcomers in positions they've not been in, like Detroit and the Rams, as you said, winning 7 of 8. We're gonna have fun, man. It's gonna be a fun month here to talk about it.
One of the parts of story time with Brock Huard was the Peyton Manning story about the voice memos there. When are you going to be on the Manning cast? Because trust me, they've had a lot worse guests than Brock Huard.
Probably never. Yeah, probably never.
If you were an ESPN employee, you think you'd be on there?
Maybe there's a shot. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I beg and
is that not bucket list for you?
Be pretty fun. I know right where it's at, by the way. It could be in person too. It's an amazing little facility.
What city is it in?
It's in the Denver area. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Peyton's got a pretty.
He's not making any money post career, is he?
Nah, he doesn't seem to be a very good businessman. Oh my goodness. Uh-oh.
What do we got?
While we were doing this, I missed 2 calls, and after the second call, I said, this may be happening, and it is. Pete Carroll fired.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
Oh wow. I know you got a lot of things to do there, but man, I'm blown away. I mean, I guess you've got something with the dissension you talked about. Now, John Snyder, is it his decision?
You know, it's interesting, Lance. I said on our show today, like usually he has his end of year press conference a day after the season, maybe two.
Yeah, Jody Allen, with Paul Allen, they don't mess around. They're pretty impatient in business. And when this started to loom, I said to Saul Gavin this morning, I said, hey man, anything read into? Do you read any? It's been now 3 days. You're starting to see some conspiracy theories in the social media realms like this longer than it's ever been. And that's too bad. I have so many friends on that staff, so many relationships, and I'm not shocked with Pete. I'm not shocked. Not shocked.
Wow. Well, if I was to ask you this though, Pete Carroll, oldest active coach, or was the oldest active coach in the NFL, is he done coaching? Do you think?
Yeah. Wow. I think it's 72. I don't.
God, that's a sad day, man. I hate to see Pete Carroll,
yes,
a guy that had a dominant dynasty at USC and a guy that went to multiple Super Bowls and won one of the few guys that has ever won both national championship and Super Bowl, to go out on his career getting fired. I hate that.
I wonder, honestly, Lance, my gut is with 3 days that they've sat on this, and it's the longest they've waited for a press conference. I wonder if some of this has been back and forth of, will you resign? Because we don't want to fire you.
Yeah.
Will you just step down? And it's interesting. It didn't feel right. Pete is a feel guy. After all these years, he's a feel guy. He's an emotional guy. And, a bunch of different times kind of said that, we talk to him every Monday. Like it's just not feeling right. And it reminds me of, well, this is my last story of the day this time, sitting with Chris Peterson in a personal moment. I went into, this was not like doing a production meeting. It was a separate time. And at the end, Pete just kind of, Coach Peterson, Chris was like, it just doesn't feel right. I'm just not reaching them. I'm just not. I know when the message is sinking in. I know when it's there, and I know when it's not. And this year, the message over the last 10 games, finishing 3-7, 31st in defense. They were 30th in defense last year. A guy that prides himself at the line of scrimmage. These things just weren't right. And multiple times with DK, as we talked about earlier, and Jamal, like the message wasn't being received. And maybe I thought there could be staff changes. Maybe it's, again, new coordinators. But he's been able to do that 3 or 4 times, bringing in new coordinators, bringing in new people the last 6-7 years. And yeah, it's a bummer. I'm bummed for a lot of my friends that are on that staff and in other roles in that building, and know the impact this can have on their lives. But can't tell you that I'm just shocked that Jody Allen and the people around her realize the same thing. This isn't feeling right, and running it back yet again. If Pete's not willing, or we don't trust that changes around him can be difference making, we're not going to run it back again.
The only reason I ask it because he's in the backyard and because it is a pro style offense. Kalen DeBoer, a candidate?
That name's been floated. I have dismissed it because he's never done 1 day of professional football coaching. The name I just mentioned, would he be on my list to interview? Chris Peterson? 100%. Would an NFL job in his home, where he makes home now and loves and is settled in, would a professional job be the one job that could pull him back into coaching? Yes. Now, he also has no professional experience. But you want to go outside the box, Kalen DeBoer would be well outside of it. I don't think Chris Peterson would be quite as far, because he would surround himself, I think, with more pro people or people that have gone on to the pros. And I don't know. Those would be a couple names. There's, if you want conspiracies, there's a lot of folks nervous. Like, hey, man, Kalen's had this contract on his desk for 39 days and hasn't signed it. And people have used that. But, man, just not an NFL background. It'd be a big risk. It'd be a big swing. I wouldn't hate it, but it would definitely be well outside the box.
Yeah, sad note to end on today. I know you got a lot of work to do. Great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next week. He is Fox's Brock Huard. It's Unlocked, Disrupt the Media. Like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up.